everybody, to Future of Beauty Unfiltered. I'm your host, Hannah Cook, Head of Growth and Innovation. And today I am joined by the absolutely glowing Rena Hammer from Indu. Hi, Rena. How are you?
Hello, how are you? Very good. Happy to be here.
Yes, me too. So today we're actually going to be talking about the rise of the tweenager. Fad
Ooh.
or opportunity? I know. Oh, it's something that everybody is talking about at the moment, and I am super excited to talk to you today about your own background and actually Indu and what you're trying to do for the industry. So I'm going to do a quick little intro to how we've got here, and then we're going to jump straight in with some questions. So during a casual chat over a family holiday, Indu's co-founder Aaron and his twin daughters, who were 13 at the time, realized that there were no beauty brands made specifically for teens. No one that truly resonated with them or that was made specifically for their skin. And obviously, as fellow parents with first-hand knowledge of how engaged today's teens are with skincare and makeup, co-founders Richard and Rena, who is now the CEO, congrats,
Thank you.
saw the same gap and quickly brought it into the idea of actually joining Aaron on the exciting Indu journey. Now, after speaking to many beauty experts and led research with thousands of teenagers to validate the idea, there were no brands that solely focused on teens and their skin and values. Now, I think what I love even more is that the way you really brought this to life was by creating your first initiative, which was your committee of a global group of diverse teenagers, from beauty novices to skincare enthusiasts. Their knowledge, voices, and opinions have been absolutely critical in all decisions and product development since the very beginning and will continue to be a vital voice for Indu going forward. So it became really clear that not only were teens potentially damaging their skin by using products that were too harsh, but felt ignored and underrepresented. And at a time in life where guidance and representation is so important for self-esteem and growth, Indu's mission is to always put teens first, offering an entry point for you to enjoy beauty in a holistic, relatable, and healthy way so that you can help your skin grow, shine, and evolve into the skin that is your own skin, no matter who you are, what you look like, or what beauty means to you. Thank you so, so much for coming today. I really am excited to talk to you. So tell me a little bit about how you came and what you wanted to bring to Indu and why you were so passionate about kind of joining that community.
Totally. So, I mean, I've known Aaron for years. It's one of those kind of industry things that you can't quite place it, but you've just known each other forever. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, he's got the teen first-hand knowledge. My little one is coming up, 2.5, so I've got a bit of time to go. But I was so when Aaron was on this holiday, I was heavily pregnant, and I remember he called me at the end of summer saying, "We've got this idea, and just like what do you think basically?" And he had this kind of group of people that he was just soundboarding off, and to be honest, everybody kind of said, "Oh, this is interesting. This is not just another beauty brand, the same thing, and this the market is oversaturated with the same stuff that doesn't really have much point of difference." And I was like, "Oh, this is really interesting, because right now I'm going through the early end and I see so much baby stuff, and then it literally drops off a cliff, and then you're suddenly an adult again." So it did ding ding and trigger something in my brain. Anyway, then about 2 months later, he called me back, and said, "That thing I spoke about, I've spoken to more and more people and I can't get it out of my head, basically." And he said, "Look, I'm not probably the right person to lead it. I'm an older bloke, and actually don't live in London, so it makes sense. We've done a bit of, calling around, and Richard and I would love you to come on board and basically be the CEO." So for me, it was so exciting because it was new. It was so clear and so compelling.
Mm.
When once he'd planted that seed in my head, I then started to go, hang on, and looking around here, looking around, and you really, there are brands that are marketing to teens, and there are brands that are kind of jumping on that bandwagon, but there's nothing that is like die hard true. But also what we noticed was there wasn't anything that was actually appealing to teens themselves. So there might be options, but they're kind of very dermy or a bit boring. And why do teens not get something that's cool, as well as functional, as well as efficacious, as well as safe, all the right things? All
Mm.
the boxes were definitely not being ticked. So for me, it was kind of like, oh, this is back in my warehouse. This is really kind of the stuff that's exciting. And yeah, I literally gave birth, and within a few months was like into kind of team meetings and getting this into action.
Wow, absolute powerhouse. Love that. So what you spoke about kind of your wheelhouse and things. So what were you doing before Indu?
So just before Indo, I was actually at Soho House. So I was kind of spearheading with Nick Jones a whole an ideal really all about social wellness, about that, they're known for their fun, but actually we need to look after ourselves. And this was very much post-pandemic. So
Mm,
it was an idea. We created this concept of called the Soho Health Club, and it was how could we bring cowshed, on essentially, but also incorporate a lot more wellness activities into the houses basically. So that's what I was doing and working on this kind of plan and program. And then, like I said, I was just about to start my maternity, got this call, and then something just, the itch got me, and I was like, oh, this is great. But my experience before that has always been kind of in beauty and spa, loads of work in product. The biggest portion of my life was Urban Retreat with its flagship in Harrods for a good 10 years. So this is kind of this is definitely what I live, breathe, and die.
yeah, want to get your teeth stuck into. Um, so I kind of want to jump straight into what is obviously a really hot and noisy topic at the moment, which is teenagers and skincare. There is a lot of media talk about beauty consumers getting younger and younger, and it was reported as young as 12-year-olds
Mhm.
are entering the category. Do you think the age at which girls and boys, but more so girls, are starting to buy health and beauty products is becoming younger, or is it simply a shift in the types of products, stores, and kind of services that they're
I think
using to get the attention?
I think that it's definitely it's things are moving younger. I mean, generally in terms of like biology and physiology, people are getting like they're entering puberty earlier, they're getting hormonal earlier. Things are changing. You can't say that things haven't moved on. Social media is a massive factor in that in terms of information, how it's digested. There's good and bad around it all.
Mm.
But I don't think it's just, the product offering is what it is and it's attracting that. I think that there is a genuine interest in this category from younger and younger people. And personally, I don't think there is anything wrong in wanting to I mean, I deem it as it's personal hygiene, wanting to clean your face, and I don't think there's anything wrong with instilling those type of values. My mum did that in me when I was young, but to a point where it's it's healthy habits. This is not about looking like something else. This is not about needing products that aren't necessary. It's just about looking after yourself. It's kind of the earliest type of self-care or wellness, to be honest. So I don't think it's a negative in that sense, but there are negatives around, I suppose, the whole thing.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think one of my frustrations that I'm seeing in the space at the moment is that um there's actually nothing wrong. It's a very positive thing to
Yeah,
be showing young people how to look after themselves,
agree.
what wellness looks like. I think where it takes a little bit of a sticky turn is when, you've got 12-year-olds, 10-year-olds worried about wrinkles
Yeah,
or
agreed.
out and trying kind of to enter the retinoid space, which, yeah, I mean, the Institute of
Yeah,
Dermatology have come out finally and gone, are you bonkers? That's just
yeah.
not something that should be happening. But I think the mental health repercussions of that, there's so many brands that we speak to on this podcast where they're frustrated because they talk about the sea of sameness and
Mhm.
that everyone around the world looks the same now in one way or
Stigmatization.
another, which is kind of crazy because we're all so unique. So because we are seeing younger and younger consumers buying kind of anti-aging products that aren't really designed for that age group, why do you think that teenagers are kind of increasingly buying those
So
products like retinol that I
like,
mentioned?
I mean, I think the first point of call is the fact that, as you said, from a good element, they're interested, right? So where do they go to find information? They go to TikTok. They don't Google search like we do. They look on social media. And I think the problem is the lack of, obviously it's not regulated. There's so much misinformation out there, but that is their source of that info. And because that has massively increased in terms of what's available, they're just absorbing, and it's just a normal part of wanting to engage with what you absorb in that sense. social media is not going anywhere, you know, and I'm not a believer of bury your head in the sand and pretend like these things don't exist. That's just not, I think, a modern way or approach of thinking. What I think the right way to do is to look at those and think about how can we engage with it in a healthy, you know, positive environment, positive manner. So when we first did our, you know, this is like right back now 2 years ago, we started with research because we wanted to know, like, how are teens finding their information? What are they interested in? What do they want? What don't they want? And the biggest thing was they actually do know, and they do take a pinch of salt with a lot of this stuff. But the biggest problem, they said, is as much as we're now engaging in it, the world hasn't caught up, and it's just still feeding us all of this adult stuff. And there's no differentiation. There's no kind of, well, hang on a minute, that's a bit sexy, or that's kind of just, oh, that model's maybe not portraying the right imagery. And that is obviously viewed by anyone, you know. So yes, it's marketing to a 25-year-old, but a 13-year-old is happily, you know, absorbing that content. So I think no one is really caught up to the fact that actually this is a real joint responsibility. It's brands who need to be really thinking about what they're putting out there and who their actual customer is, and not just kind of going, oh, well, maybe we might get some younger ones, so let's try it. Like, we all have a responsibility to do the right thing. And the biggest bit that we got the call out in our research was that they actually wanted something specific. So there was, I think, this massive misunderstanding that teens wanted adult brands, and they want to grow up too quickly. Now, we know everybody wants to grow up a bit quickly, but they don't actually want adult brands. What they feel like is everything is very kind of Tinkerbell and fairies on one end, or grown-up stuff. And actually, if you gave them something that was cool, was safe, was represented in the right way, and actually listened, they would jump in and buy that. But it's just not there. So that was kind of our immediate kind of validation of, that's why we need to do this, because there is just nothing. And when you're left with kind of left and right options, then of course you're kind of not going to be doing the right thing by them, if that makes sense.
100%. The whole wanting to grow up too quickly totally is so true, until you actually grow up and then you want to do the opposite.
Exactly.
I think it's really difficult, because you're absolutely right, and the fact that you guys did research is incredible, because it's giving people the opportunity to share. We do a lot of research our side as well, and I think by giving people the time to talk about how they feel about it is really key, because in this sector in particular, it's all about how you feel. You know,
Massively.
what is more personal than your skin? And the thing is,
Exactly.
and the thing is as well, is with particular kind of teenage skin, it's hormonal. The whole everything on a cellular level is changing.
Completely unique. So this is the other thing, when people sit there and say, why does it need to be different? Well, it is different, you know. You're going through a unique period in your life, right? So partly you actually have the best skin you've ever got in your life, the collagen, the elastin, all the things that we strive to go back and get. You're at your peak, your cell renewal's amazing. What you just need to do is just take care. You don't need to pack a load of like actives, none of that stuff. You just need to start looking after it. And the kind of phrase that we always have is, everything's about balance. You know, you are going through hormonal stuff, there's stress, there is, you know, the pizza that you ate, there is so much different things that are kind of having an effect on your skin, that ultimately you are not going to be in this perfect, you know, kind of glass-like phase forever. There are going to be moments when you get a spot, and that's absolutely fine. And I think that's also part of the problem, and it breeds all this, the bad mental health stuff, is that this idea of having to be perfect because that's what you see. There needs to be so much more realness in terms of what is out there and what is understood. And so for us, that was a huge part of it. It was not just kind of creating great product that it was specific and listening to this audience. It was about making sure that teens start building a healthy relationship with beauty. You know, that the ideals are all about you. They're not about trying to match something or be somebody else. It's just, you be happy in you. If that means that you want to have blue eyeshadow one day, if that means you just want to wear lip balm the next, totally fine. You know, be as extravagant or not as you want, but just make it about you, you know.
It's really difficult, because it's something that I'm so passionate about, because as much as, like you say, I think we as brands have a huge responsibility, but so do the platforms,
Yeah.
because the platforms are the ones that have access. But on top of that, influencers for me also
Yeah.
really need to be thinking about, if an influencer knows if they have a young audience,
Yes.
They know who their audience are. So why they're morally and ethically choosing to work with a brand that is not their target audience purely because of their reach or whatever else it may be, there's a duty of care here. And brands can only do so much, but I think it's important for brands to really think about that when they are looking to work with influencers. And
Agree.
like you kind of say, what is perfection? Like, do you know what I mean? Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and that kind of says it all. And I think it's about teaching you to accept and embrace whatever that is. I mean, we all have stories as teenagers where we look back and think, oh God, I used to look
I
in the
know.
mirror and,
That's
you
part of
know,
it. That's also the time to experiment. This,
yeah.
so what if like you did some dodgy eyeliner one day? Well, wipe it off and do something the next. It's part of your just trialing moment. But I'm with you. There is this massive collective responsibility. It's not just the brands, it's the retailers as well. There are health warnings on, sugary drinks. There are health warnings on cigarettes. Like there are certain things, like some of these products can actually really harm young skin. Like the
Mm,
first thing we should be at least doing is I suppose identifying what is safe and what isn't, and that doesn't mean safe in terms of chemically. It just means that product is safe, but it's not safe for anyone under 18, for example. Like
mm.
I just think there's a long way to go, but we all have to get in this together because they are an active consumer and we cannot ignore it. They want to do this and we need to make sure that we're doing right by them.
What about the parents though? Because the parents are effectively the ones that are buying the products, right? So
Yeah.
what can be done, or what are you guys wanting to do as a brand to support that? Because obviously there's capturing kind of your target audience's attention, which are kind of the younger tweens. But what about helping the parents understand that?
Completely agree. So we've sat here as well, and it's one of the first things we did in terms of our research as well. And we said to teens, if we spoke to your parents, how would you feel about that? And they said, fine, as long as you're not talking behind our backs or like kind of about us, we're in the conversation. Actually, it would really benefit because a lot of the time our parents haven't got a clue, and that was their own admission. And that is actually the truth of what we see. So we're in the industry, and there's often situations where we're like, I don't know what to get that person. What should I do? And there's so much kind of, oh, is that going to be a bit, oh, is their dad going to be annoyed if I buy them that palette? There is this kind of weird kind of energy around it, right? And that's for people in the industry, let alone people who don't. So I think our biggest thing is, as we've always said, teen first, but we have to talk to parents, and we do talk to parents. So part of that is trying to help them so that they understand their teens. The biggest one I'm feeling at the moment is like when your teenager comes to you and says, I want that really expensive thing that I've seen and it all looks fabulous and whatever it might be.
It's
Actually,
£40 for a lip liner.
exactly. Rather than just kind of poo-pooing it straight off, which by the way, it's not right. They don't need all of that and they shouldn't be spending that amount of money. But rather than just being absolutely not, I think the most important thing is to engage in that conversation and be like, why do you want it? Do you want it just because, and probably 50% of the time it's just, I've seen it and it's cool and people are talking about it. All right. But the other 50 is probably the girl going, well, I think I need it. And I don't think like starting to feel that kind of confidence break and just kind of, well, I'm not comfortable and I'm not this. And there's other reasons as to why they want that, because they think they need to look a certain way, because they think they need to have this product because this product is going to fix everything.
Yeah.
And that needs a conversation. That is where parenting comes involved, and again, I'm not preaching because I'm not there yet, but it's that element of opening up that dialogue, because that's where you can then start to get to the bottom of why do they want this stuff. But it's really hard for parents. It's the mobile phone. Should I get them? Not when? What age should I have one?
Oh,
I mean, it's a minefield.
I
So
have a
to help them as much as to help teens.
for sure. So I have a soon to be 7-year-old son,
Yeah.
and it is. I have these conversations with my friends all the time that have kids of a similar age, and I have them with my own parents, and it's like a different world. You cannot compare your own upbringing and your own childhood experience with the experience that children nowadays are living, because the speed in which my almost 7-year-old can type blows my mind. I've been working in a professional working environment with computers and laptops for over, 20 something years. And I watch him and I'm like, how,
Yeah.
and the technology side, the reason why I think, YouTube Kids, all these things, influencer is now a career path. It's something they talk about in
That was
schools.
never a thing. I mean, mine's 2.5. He knows how to swipe. He knows how to go this way and that way. Like,
Yeah.
it's mental.
And so it's just so hard. And I really empathize for parents, particularly with young girls when they are wanting those pamper parties and everything else, of finding that balance. Because I think as well as you'll know, and all other parents or anyone that actually just loves anyone, you just think they're gorgeous, no matter whether they've got bedhead, a face full of spots, black
No,
teeth, black
whatever it
eyes,
is. Yeah.
yes, snot all over your face, bit of, mushed up carrot on your cheek. They're beautiful. And that goes back to that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And it's one of those, I wish you could kind of bottle up that feeling that your loved ones feel when they look at you rather than looking at yourself. And I do think there's such a challenge there. I think also what is really difficult with kind of younger teenage skin is, like you say, it's not in their control. Hormones play such a big part, hormonal acne, and also, you could have a hormonal breakout. That's it. I've got acne. It's the worst thing in the world. And so you
Yeah.
just go for acne product after acne product. And the amount of damage you then do to your skin barrier, the pH of your own skin is incredible. Obviously Indu is following a different path by developing products specifically designed for tweenage customers, and therefore hormonal imbalances is part of that. Um, what kind of how did you get there? What led you down that path?
The first route was, once we knew we had to be specific, and this is so true. We sat there and said, we don't mind if you grow out of Indu, like that's absolutely fine. I think that is probably one of brands' hardest thing, is once they get you, they want to keep you, and then they often lose their own identity by trying to keep you when you're 40, when they got you when you were 20. It's all very, very odd. And we just said no, like we'll just recruit the next generation, but it's fine to have your 5-6 year window with us. That's absolutely fine. So what we looked at was, first of all, we went through kind of what is teen skin going through. So absolutely, we've got teen psychologists on the board, obviously dermatologists, the labs that we worked with, and we researched why and how it's different. That's where we then say it's peak performance, it's doing this, it's doing that. It all comes down to microbiome, it comes down to pH levels, as you said, it comes down to that balance piece, alongside then the whole kind of mental and the idea of like, actually it's okay, and if you have one spot, like you just said, doesn't mean you have acne, doesn't mean you have to go straight away and freak out and do other things that then actually make it worse. Just appreciate that's part of it, and it's crap, none of us like it, but it happens, it goes, and it'll be fine. So we really went into that specificity. But we then decided to look at ingredients in a even tighter way than normal regulation. We really kind of wanted to make sure everything was really, really safe and sound. And then actually when we tested everything, so we are dermatologically tested, we're all non-comedogenic, all those types of extra bits of yes, trust. But the funny things are, like, when you actually go to the testing houses, they're like, okay, well, we'll test it on 18-year-olds. You're like, no. They're like, well, that's what we normally do. I'm like, what's the point? So there are all these kind of really nuanced things that, unless you actually pick up on it, you're like, okay, so you could say that was tested, but it's not tested on our age group. That's just bizarre. So obviously we went through all of those things to say, no, this has to be super, super specific. And through all those kind of hoops, you then get to this element that we formulated super, super specifically for this age group. The packaging also was in cohorts, and we'll get to it, with a committee. So everything was about, how do they live, what do they want? So again, like, they're portable, their lifestyles are from school to sleepovers, what works for them. Yes, they do want something that's shelfie worthy, because to be fair, why should they just have something that's boring and isn't inspiring? All of us, when we wake up and we want to pick something up, we use it more if we're into it, and oh, this is nice, so why should we just go, oh no, teens shouldn't have that? There's this kind of, there is quite a negative association, I will say, around teens and the word teen. Like, if I actually said to you, name the first three things that come to your mind, you'd probably say like smelling,
Grumpy,
grumpy,
hormonal
like,
attitude. Yes, of course.
why is this like the last group of people you can be like rude about? It's not okay. They're actually
Mm,
like, they're amazing, they're talented, they're creative, they are, you know,
innovative.
they're innovative. They're the ones who are actually telling all of us to look at the planet, to sort stuff out. Like, they are very, very, they're amazing, and we should be celebrating them and not kind of going, oh, we'll just fob that off to the team. Like, that's just awful. That was another reason why I wanted to get on board, because it felt like there was always this kind of really negative attitude, and actually it should be embraced and
Mm.
celebrated, basically.
Just circling back super quickly, how did you navigate the whole testing on younger skin? Because anything under 18 is under lock and key. So how on earth did you navigate that?
So, mixture of two things. So one, when obviously we went to do things professionally with testing houses, it's like any baby product has to be performed on that age group. So that was all very, above board and with kind of those institutions. But with the committee, as you said, so once we did that first kind of cohort of research, which was a few thousand teens across the US and the UK, we then kind of went, we need this all the time. Like, we can't just do this as a one-off, and it was a 3-month project, by the way. So it wasn't just kind of one focus group, it was full on. But that was kind of, this needs to be the heartbeat of this brand. This needs to be like, we're almost just executing their wish. Like, we to be fair, don't really matter. We're here to just make it happen. So that was when we said, right, we've got to have this team committee. And it grew. So it started only with about 50 people, and it's continuing to grow and grow and grow. It's already getting into just different kind of offshoots of ones who are more involved in content, ones who are more involved in NPD, some who like marketing. So it's for them, and this is some of the feedback we've got, which is what makes me really proud, to be honest, and kind of, that kind of get up and go, is you have parents emailing us saying, my teen is so much more confident, they feel like someone is finally listening to them, they feel ownership of this brand, which is what's really important to us too, that it is theirs. We're, like I say, delivering this in a way that works for them. But their involvement, they have had to do questionnaires and so many things for us in terms of, what do you deem as sensitive? Do you like this texture? Do you like this smell? And they've just been amazing and jumped into it, because I feel like goes back to that original thing of wanting to be acknowledged and wanting to be heard and listened to. But we did everything kind of in-house, all in closed networks, and kept it super, super private, basically, and very, very intimate.
Mm. It's funny, it's going back to what you were saying earlier about everything starting younger, children as young as 8 are having their first period in the UK now. And um, we kind of assume that the desire for products and be marketed to and spoken to isn't there as well. If they're aging ahead and everything's happening earlier, that communication needs to be there. And I think with teenagers, we kind of just in society at times just let them float and exist
Yeah.
and kind of go through the cycles, run through the system. And it's a bit like menopausal women, actually, in the beauty industry.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get to kind of 35 and then you disappear, and the next thing you know, you've got a blue rinse, and it's kind of
Like, what
and
happened? Exactly.
yeah, exactly. You just miss the last quarter of your life. And I think with teenagers, you miss a really pivotal kind
You
of
do.
6 to 8 years of them actually becoming young adults. And probably that's the key time, really, where you make all the mistakes and learn all the lessons.
Totally. I mean, we've started to go into schools now as well and talk, because the more, we've kind of, the schools and the educators have come to us and kind of said, you're doing things in the right way, right? We can see that you are being really thoughtful, all of your language, everything goes through our teen psychologists. So there is always this element of positivity and good reinforcement. Nothing kind of, none of the negative connotations that you see, or the over, like we talked about, the perfectionism and the sexiness and all that sort of stuff. And they're like, we can see that actually what you're trying to do is start this journey in the right
Yeah,
in the
a
right way.
movement kind of thing. Yeah.
And they're like, and we go, we're not talking about product, we're not trying to, I don't care, we're not here to flog a cleanser. That's not the end game. The end game is that the more people that can understand, and the more people that can feel like they can have a knowledge and awareness. I mean, we have fun things where we joke about, and we say, like, okay, do you have a flannel in your bathroom? Most people put their hands up, and they're like, who uses that? And they're like, oh, I do, my brother, my dad. And I'm like, okay,
Oh,
when they're like, straight away, that's the problem, guys. Forget what product you're using, forget what you're putting on. That's gross. And it's kind of like, but actually, who tells them that? you know, no one's going to say that. So there's some elements, it's almost, I mean, it's not sex ed, but there's an element of just kind of this part of hygiene and what's going on. And we've played with so many things that you know, Bettina, who's I'll reference her again, our teen psychologists have told us about, like what the brain is going through, you know, how little sleep most teenagers actually have, and under, you know, they need so much more, and all these things impact their impulsivity, you know, the hormones, all of these things. And the more that they can actually understand it, by the way, this includes teachers, this includes parents, because they've all just said, we don't even know about this stuff. If we can just help share info, I feel like that's the biggest, you know, that's the starting point, the biggest hurdle to get over. Then we can worry about actually what products, you know, we get into, but let's just get the basics right first.
What were the biggest things that you were surprised about when you started working with Bettina? So Bettina's the psychologist within your team, yeah?
So I think a lot of it was understanding about the impulsivity of the teen brain, and how actually, I think it's until you're in your early 20s, your brain actually isn't fully developed yet. So it explains a lot. But it's kind of one of those, you shouldn't, you know, if your mates want this and something else, that is natural for you to just gravitate towards that and want all of those things. So there's an element of just having to, you know, this again is the parent piece, understanding that it's not bad, that's just the teen psychology. It's helped us understand things like, you know, a spot is the end of the world. It, you know, that how everything is massively amplified when you're that age, and actually poo-pooing things is really not a good idea. You have to kind of absorb it, listen, but then also give it realism, you know. And I think that's where often it's that kind of, yeah, shut up, it's just a spot. Yeah, it is just a spot, but actually to me it feels horrendous, you know. And actually we all understand what that feels like, so just be a bit sympathetic sometimes to that situation and don't just kind of brush it off. But like I say, with an element of realism and this anti kind of perfectionism, I think is the best way to put it. But it was so many things like that, that just little triggers, and just how we talk. And if you say something one way or another, you know, you can literally be saying the same thing, but it's how you deliver it. So yeah, kind of all those types of things.
Do you so obviously Indu as a brand, and you guys all are incredibly passionate about it. I can see it in your face, I can hear it, and it's just so refreshing, and it definitely, you know, makes me feel for the teens and the parents kind of within that space. And I do think there's still a lot that's got to change. Do you think that the industry in general at large should take more responsibility in educating children about which products and ingredients are suitable?
I think that there, you know, I do think there is a collective responsibility, and I think it's very easy for people to say it's on the brands or it's just on the retailer, and it isn't. I do think it's a collective thing, and I think that goes to the individual. So this is what we say to actually the consumers, our teenagers, is we say you need to do your research. Just because you've seen one influencer or one whatever, you need to take responsibility as a person and say, do I think this is right for me? Let me check it out. Just because they say retinol's great, should I? Let me do my own research, number one. Then actually the brands have to do the right things and be responsible and say, this is suitable for this isn't suitable for that. That's really important. Retailers should as well. You know, there's, like I said, in terms of warnings and labels, and this is, you know, I think when I was really young, I used to go, and I think there was like a teen and a kids section. You know, you'd go and it was really crappy, like I said, Tinkerbell nail polish and stuff like that. But at least I knew that was where I was supposed to go. I think now you don't even know where to go. So I think some kind of sectioning or even earmarking of what products that, you know, are safe would be great. But I also think maybe that is a governmental thing. Maybe there's elements, like I said, about sugar warnings and, you know, vapes and the rest of it. Maybe there should be extra things that need to go on packaging. You know, maybe there should be in time. But I do think this is a group kind of effort, really.
Yeah, this is definitely a society-based discussion, isn't it? I think, you know, there's a reason why we're seeing such a rise in kind of anxiety and depression as well, is just because the amount of chemicals within our food. And I think that is also, like, if you look at a typical meal that a typical family would eat now, versus one
Yeah,
40,
crap
50 years
now.
ago, the
Yeah.
amount of additives, chemicals, preservatives. So even when you buy something and you're thinking, actually, it's a smoothie, it's healthy, it's this, it's that, And the reality is, it's not. So you're ending up with more and more and more children being diagnosed with ADHD, ADD. Obviously, there's so much more of an awareness around kind of the autistic spectrum. And so you're layering all of those things on top. And then you have to deal with kind of the hormonal teenage side of going through all of those changes in your body and navigating it. I have gone on courses myself where I've spoke to people and said, do you think it's a consequence of the pandemic? And they're like, no, it was coming from before the pandemic. The pandemic just expedited the fact that for the first time ever, we have a generation of children and teenagers that do not speak the same language as their parents. And so I think by what you guys are doing, it's just amazing because you're kind of coming in and going, well, okay, we don't speak your language, but teach us, and taking that time to learn about it. How so from your research, you're kind of saying that the key areas for them and how they discover information sounds like is TikTok. They're not really Googlers like us millennials.
It's TikTok, it's Snapchat, it's Instagram, but it is also influence circles. And I don't mean big influencers, right? They have said to us that yes, they engage and they absorb that content, but they do take a pinch of salt, right? But it's their circle of influence. So whether that is like the cool girl at school, their head boy, their head of the rugby team, whatever it might be, there is those kind of really close-knit micro networks. And if one person in that group says, I love this is amazing, pretty much the whole posse joins basically. So it's small networks of trust, which I think is great and really healthy. At least it means somebody's tried something and is probably being a real advocate for something. But those were the ways that they really kind of find things out and suss out whether they want to engage or not.
So what ingredients do you think are suitable then for kind of tween skin? So talk to me a little bit about your products and your formulation. So obviously there's the process you go through, but what's in them?
Yeah, so I think everything is from, first of all, it's more about what's not in them, right? So there's certain things that we definitely, like you said, your retinols, your highly active kind of ingredients that we avoid. But what we've done is we've done a lot of research into microbiome and pH balance. And so in all of our skincare, we have what we call a tribiotic complex. So it has pro, and postbiotics. So it's all about, again, when I said we go
sounds like the dream.
teach about kind of like all the bacteria, and they're like, oh, I'm like, yeah, but it's good. You need to feed all that stuff. It's, so for us, it's very much about that balance piece, because like I said, they actually have really, really fantastic skin. So it's caring for that, so we don't have 50 million serums and all this type of stuff. It's very kind of, we've got 2 cleansers, a universal and one that's if you're a little bit more oily or congested. Similarly in our moisturizers, SPF is coming because we know how important it is, but we've wanted to make something again that they're like, I don't like things being greasy, I want the smell to be a certain way, the texture to kind of be lightweight, and we just weren't happy with anything. It took us a long time, and so we're almost there. But like I said, it's very much about those types of, it's all microbiome, pH balanced. And yes, there are things that are just generally good. So hyaluronic acid, which is generally just moisturizing factors. A lot of it comes down to hydration levels actually in moisturization. And so many teens, again, don't drink enough water. So it's kind of, it's all that kind of sealing, just putting the good stuff in, but nothing overly active at all. It's just completely unnecessary. The amount of teens we've had of saying, should I use vitamin C and should I all this, like, you don't need it yet. You just don't need it. Like, vitamin C, amazing product, and retinol, amazing product, but just not for you, not for your age group. I think that's the hard part, is that they're often confused with, like, people are saying it's really good, and it's like, it is good, but just not for you yet. And I suppose no one likes to hear that, do they?
Age and stage, isn't it? I mean, no matter what age you are, there's always that same challenge. What about the makeup? Because obviously you guys, we've spoken a lot about your skincare. Why do you make, like, it's really obvious for me why skincare should exist, but what about your makeup?
And you're absolutely right. Like in the first, we got actually quite a lot of challenges around it. Like, shouldn't we it should be no makeup. And we sat there and we went, well, okay, this is the reality of the situation. It goes back to social media, goes back to all this sort of stuff. The reality is they're using it. They want to use it. So burying our heads in the sand and saying, no, let's just cut it off as a category isn't helping. Actually, what we need to do is create products that are non-comedogenic, that are flattering and kind of, I don't want to say appropriate because it makes it, but appropriate for that age group, so you're not going to find heavy stuff and things where you're like, God, what happened? It's about experimentation, it's about playfulness, it's about fun. So our take is, at least do it with a product that is safe, product that your parents can sit there and say, I'm happy for her to play with that eyeliner, good luck to you, have fun with it, but in the right way. Our imagery is, as I keep saying, it's not going to be sexualized. It's not going to be like, oh, here's pouty lips to make your lips, like, no plumpers, none of that stuff. It's just about having playful fun. And the biggest part for us with teens and kind of differentiation was listening to how they like I said earlier, how they live. So it was, I want to be able to take a brow gel to school because I now can get away with brow gel. I want to be able to have a lip oil because they're the products that are in the kind of the grey area that no one's going to tell me off. So like we have this complete colorless range, which is essentially all the stuff you can wear to school. Dad's not going to say go back downstairs or go back upstairs and take it off. Clear brow gels, lip oils, little bits of blur to take some of the shine off. It's all just those little things that make you feel a little bit just, give you that little confidence boost. And the makeup all comes in a fabulous portable palette that all of our wands clip onto. So it's all about their lifestyle. And that was a huge one. Like I just carry my phone. I want to be able to clip, my lipstick. No, we don't make a lipstick, but a lip gloss to it. So it's that energy is what came across in terms of their demand. But the overall premise was, if we didn't do it, they would still be engaging. And the whole point of Indu is about to tackle any of this stuff head on with a healthy, trusted option. That was the point. We wanted to be this one-stop shop.
Yeah, absolutely. So what could be next then? So you've got the skincare, the makeup. Is it hair? Like what do they care about?
So, I mean, the list of ideas for MPD that we have will take us through the next 20 years. I mean, we needed this, and I have about this texture that doesn't exist. It's amazing. Guy who's our head of development is like, oh, how am I going to get through it? But I think for us, the next step will be probably developing maybe more into a bit of body and hygiene, because it's not just about this,
Yeah, totally.
There's lots more going on. And if we want to, like I said, be that kind of, when you think teen beauty, you think Indu, we need to kind of branch out into those areas. But it's always still got to be led by them, the formats that make sense for them, the textures, the smells that make sense for them, not us sitting in a room saying, oh, let's do a lipstick. Like,
what do you, out of the research and kind of obviously engagement you have from your committee, between makeup and skincare, which one do you typically find that they lean towards?
So this is really, really interesting. We hoped it would be the case, but it really is. It's like 48-52. It's very, very, very
to
even.
which?
52 for skin, which is great.
Okay.
So I think that, yeah, they're one, and we see mixed baskets as well. It's not like people are just engaging in one area or the other. So I think it's very much about this all-round thing. So I think that also helped kind of sit there and say, you know what, again, it is about a holistic, how to engage with all aspects of beauty, to be honest.
I think as well, there's always these kind of jokes about being in the clean girl era and having that kind of minimalist look. And I think, again, I try and avoid talking about it, but it's kind of key. Lockdown really made people reassess their general health levels. And I think more people than ever have had a bit more of a European approach to skincare and started looking after the canvas more rather than just always covering it, which is typically what we did.
Told me that. She's like, you can't, I'm not allowed, don't know if I'm allowed to swear
No, yeah, you can swear, it's fine.
like, you can't paint on a shit canvas. Like, that's just, like, there's only so much you can do. You've got to take care of your skin. So I was lucky to have her instilling that sort of stuff in me, and it was very much around just clean your face. She was never pushing me to use a load of product, but it was, like I said, going back to that, oh, hygiene, that's nice. And then get a spot, I know, don't do this, don't do that, and then that's fine, and it will go away, but yeah, definitely, it's skin is very, very important, but makeup's fun. That's fun.
It's all about self-expression, isn't it? I think this is what's great about this generation. I have loved talking to you. I could actually talk to you about this for hours. I feel like I need to.
I'm like, what? This is what? How's that?
I know. I know. There's so much more I want to talk about. I really do. I can't wait to follow this journey. And I have a feeling adults over time will start enjoying those makeup palettes too, because
look,
good for them. It's good for us.
There's a few sneaky things, and look, I said they're made for teens, but a good product is a good product, and there are certain things that we are loving in the office, and we kind
I
of like,
bet.
I don't want to put teens off, but the bloody mascara is amazing and I
Is
love it.
it?
And I think it's brilliant. So yeah,
Well, it's made for them, but it's, if it's
yeah,
functional and it
that's
applies,
it.
why not
If
have it
it works, it works.
universal? Yeah, no, it sounds absolutely amazing. I really am loving Indu's journey and I can't wait. I don't think that we need to find a new name for it, but Tweenager is the easiest way to put them in those boxes at the moment. The teens and the younger kind of skin, I don't think they're going anywhere. They are really having a huge influence on the category. It's just about, as you say, taking the time to understand them, giving them the respect and
Yep.
space that they need to feel heard. If you could give one piece of advice based on the journey that you've been through, um, to the listeners, what would it be?
The listeners, are your listeners teenagers or are your listeners now us?
Uh, they're us. They're
Oh,
adults. They're industry
their
professionals.
industry us. So, like I think the biggest learning is most of the time you really got to trust your gut and your intuition on this stuff. So for example, when Aaron had that moment with his girls, there was something in his tummy that just went, oh, I need to probe this. And I've had that many times in my life where sometimes I've ignored it and it has shown or proved to be not the right thing. But when something catches you, just validate it and go for it. Like, just stop the bullshit. Honestly, take the plunge, go for it. It's exciting. This is why we do things. We live to thrive and do stuff. So, be a bit bold sometimes.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Rena. It's been so, so lovely speaking to you. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode on all about teenage skin and the power of listening, which is what I'm taking away from this. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. If you have any questions for me or Rena, please do get in touch at podcast@thepullagency.co.uk, and I'll see you next time.